We gather for healing, for laughter, and to rejoice. We gather to find new ways of loving, new ways of thinking, new ways of being. We gather. Yes, always we gather, for it is in our gathering that we find hope. Come, let us worship together. Our opening hymn this morning is number 38, Morning Has Broken. Well, now it is time for our children to head off to religious exploration. So let's sing them off as they go. Let us now enter into a time of prayer and meditation. O Holy One, the light of many names, as we sit here in this time and place, we know that there are things that trouble us. Some of us here are worrying about our children, about children with medical problems, children in conflicts or angry. Some of us carry with us concern about our aging parents. Some of us still grieve the death of a mother or a father. Some of us are confused about a relationship and wondering if it's time for it to end. Some of us are worrying about losing our jobs. Some of us are angry. Some of us have lost a sense of direction. Some are lonely. Some are feeling overwhelmed. So we come together here into this community, into this place made holy by our gathering, into this time set aside for quiet reflection. All of our needs and expectations, seeking a word of comfort, a moment of insight, a glimpse of that which is just beyond our understanding. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, help us to know your presence. Be with us in our suffering so that somehow we may know joy and peace as well. Let's quiet our minds as we enter into a time of silent meditation. Amen. Our next hymn this morning is number 145, As Tranquil Streams. Well, now I would invite Don Rolfe to share with us a moment with the congregation. Don is a member of the annual Fund Drive Committee.
Thank you for letting me speak today. Building our dreams together. This is the theme of this year's annual fund drive. I'm Don Rolfe, a member of the annual fund drive committee, and I'd like to riff on this theme because I think there's so much contained in it. First Parish Medfield is our community. It exists because we choose to make it exist, and it only happens because of us. And it embodies our dreams of a just and accepting community, our dreams of a community which can make the world better, better for ourselves, better for our children, better for minorities of all types, better for the climate, better for justice. And we pursue these dreams because we choose to pursue them. Dream and with a governing structure which we choose. But in accepting this opportunity to choose, we must also accept the responsibility to support the community. So please, let's come together in the annual fund drive to ensure that our community remains lively and vital. Because only if our community is lively and vital will we be able to build our dreams together. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. The morning offering will now be given and gratefully received. Well, now I would invite Don to speak again and share with us a poem.
This is the poem Hope by Jennifer Pratt Walter. See how the winds have shaped her hands to hold hope. So tenuous, it trembles like a hummingbird's heart. She gently carries hope to a nest in the midst of the maelstrom and tilts it into the bowl of tiny feathers and mosses. Hope is so hard to cup. She might need your help when it seeps through the cracks of her fingers. Place your hands like this around hers. Together it can be done. When it hatches, when the nest is no more, when the wind picks up hope and lays it softly into the welcome of upraised palms.
Thank you, Don. Well, during a recent conversation with a First Parish member, we talked about just how important this congregation has been for us, especially recently when things have been hard. He said that he wanted this congregation to be a place where it is safe to express all of the emotions, not just the happy ones, not just the positive ones, the ones that make everyone feel good, but the whole range of emotions, he said, even anger and fear, and yes, despair. A church community needs to hold all of this, he said. And so we do here at First Parish, because we know that this is real. It's an honest reflection of life in all of its fullness. Joy and woe are woven fine, said the poet William Blake. And Khalil Gibran says, when you are joyous, look deep into your heart, and you shall find it is only that which has given you sorrow that is giving you joy. When you are filled with sorrow, look again in your heart, and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which has been your delight. Joy and woe are woven fine. The poets know it, the mystics know it, and we know it as well, for truly being honest with ourselves. But there's something else as well, something which is the human capacity to remain hopeful even in those darkest of times. That even during those tough times, it's possible to find that little glimmer of hope. Emily Dickinson puts it this way: hope is the thing with feathers, that thing that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chilliest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. Hope, she says, is that thing with feathers, a little bird that perches in our soul, and even when the storms come, keeps right on singing the sweetest of tunes. Hope, a thing with feathers. I know all too well that this little bird sometimes takes a bit of a bashing. In these days, with all of the trouble in the world, sometimes it can be hard to remain hopeful. Today we watch in horror as the brutal war in the Ukraine continues day after day. More and more lives being lost. We worry about this persistent pandemic and wonder when the next variant might strike. Sometimes it feels pretty hopeless. We continue to see the proliferation of guns, the easy access to drugs, poverty, hate crimes, our prisons filled to overflowing. Seems like the little bird doesn't have much to sing about these days, especially when we lift our eyes and look out into the world. So much to worry about, so much that is frightening. It'd be so easy to pack it in, crawl into bed, and pull the covers up over our heads. And yet, that little thing with feathers keeps on singing. I wonder what this could be about. One of the people who has helped me understand this thing called hope is Paul Tillich, one of the great theologians of the 20th century. In a sermon he preached over 50 years ago, Tillich describes the difference between foolish hope and genuine hope. He says that foolish hope is when we hope for something that's impossible, something that's not really grounded in reality. It's like a fairy tale in which a beggar discovers that in actuality, he is the lost child of a king, and that overnight he becomes a prince. He goes from abject poverty to extreme wealth, just like that. Hoping for something like this to happen, says Tillich, is foolishness. As foolish as my hope of winning the lottery. Another foolish hope, Tillich says, is thinking that it's possible to achieve perfection, that somehow God's kingdom will be achieved here on earth, that eventually we'll learn to live together in peace and harmony, that all that's been cast asunder will be made whole once more. Our own Ralph Waldo Emerson believed that individuals had to experience an inner transformation before they could really join with others to bring about external transformation. This may be true in part. However, he also believed, for a while at least, that a new world couldn't arrive until all hearts were pure. The hope that this could ever be so, Tillich would have said, is foolish hope. Genuine hope, on the other hand, is hope that's grounded in reality. For if there is a realistic basis for hope, then the fulfillment of this hope becomes a possibility. It's not guaranteed, but it's possible. Tillich uses the analogy of a seed. He says that within that seed is the beginning of a stem and a leaf and a flower. There's no guarantee, of course, that this seed will grow into a flower, but if that seed is planted in fertile soil and receives enough sun and water, there's genuine hope that a flower will result. The same thing could be said for a child. Child contains within themselves the possibility of growing into maturity and leading a good, fulfilling life. It's not guaranteed. The possibility of this happening makes it a genuine hope. He goes on to say that we also hope for the fulfillment of our work, often against hope, because it is already in us as a vision and a driving force. We hope for a lasting love because we feel the power of this love present in our lives. But it is hope, not certainty. And this genuine hope can be expanded out into bigger concepts, like the concept of democracy, which began with the idea that people have equal dignity under the law. When enough people accepted that idea, the hope for democracy became a genuine hope. The same principle applies to giving the disenfranchised a voice. When enough people started to believe that everyone has the right to be heard, then the hope for poor people to have some say in what happens to them becomes a genuine hope. Well, I'm guessing that some of you hearing these words may be a bit skeptical, that the assumptions made by Tillich 50 plus years ago were naive. There have been many voices of reason and compassion that have been silenced, you may be thinking. Too many disappointments. Too many times that our hopes have been dashed. Too much that still worries us and grieves us. Too much work left undone. Well, Tillich reminds us, however, that our goal in life can't and should never be perfection, because perfection is not part of the human condition. Never has been, never will be. We humans are just too flawed. Each and every one of us have flaws. It was Alexander Solzhenitsyn who said that the line separating good from evil runs right down the center of the human heart. And if indeed this is true, and all evidence seems to point to its truth, then evil, that which is life negating, will continue to be with us in all kinds of ways. It'll keep popping up in surprising ways sometimes, heartbreaking ways, destructive ways. That's just the way life is. But this reality, it doesn't extinguish the genuine hope that things can and will be better. Tillich says that every time we progress from injustice to more justice, from suffering to more happiness, from hostility to more peace, from separation to more unity, then we are experiencing the coming of God's kingdom. Not in its entirety, but in little ways. And each time that this happens, a glimmer of genuine hope has been rekindled. The Reverend Barbara Hebner says that, quote, "Hope is that slender thread we shoot across the abyss of despair so that we may later haul across the ropes of reality." Let me say that again. Hope is that slender thread we shoot across the abyss of despair so that we may later haul across the ropes of reality. We are not meant to swing across the chasm on glimmering gossamer strands of hope. They are there to guide us as we do the hard work of building the bridges upon which we all may walk across for generations to come. Building bridges is grubby and unglamorous, scary, expensive, and time-consuming. But that's what gets us across. Now, sometimes it is just a slender thread of hope, that thing with feathers that perches in our souls, quietly singing, that enables us to get out of bed in the morning, that allows us to keep building those bridges that will help us to get on with life. A thing that helps us to transcend our grief, our fear, our despair, and to find those seeds of possibility that with our tender care can be brought to fruition. Things may seem pretty grim sometimes, hopeless even. But we don't have to look very far to see an abundance of goodness, a proliferation of goodness. Let's us all give thanks. Give thanks for what we've created right here in this place, where it's safe to experience and admit to all of the emotions, where it's safe to be vulnerable with one another, where it's safe to be our true selves, where it's safe to consider life and all of its fullness. For all of this and more, we give thanks. Amen. Our closing hymn this morning is A Promise Through the Ages Rings, number 344. We have met here on holy ground. For that place is holy where lives touch, where love moves, where hope stirs. We've met on holy ground, brought into being as life encounters life, as personal histories merge into the communal story, as we take on the pride and pain of our companions, as separate selves become community. May our souls capture this treasured time. May our spirits celebrate our meeting in this time and in this space, for we, friends, have met on holy ground. I'll now extinguish our chalice, but may its light and warmth stay in our hearts until we meet again. Here ends our worship. Let our service begin.